We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides, and we continue our conversation with longtime host of this here radio show, Mr. Tim Donner. So, Tim, we hinted briefly at examining who's going to be running against whatever 20 and 28 contender there is for the Republican Party. And you wrote a fascinating piece this week on a name that's making massive headlines for what I can tell, no discernible, sensible reason. And that is Mr. Stephen A. Smith. You may know him from presenting sports and very little else. Tim, leader of the free world, as you opened your piece, leader of the free world, Stephen A. Smith, the basketball guy. I'm rambling here because it's beyond my ken, as we say over this part of the world. What's happening with Stephen A. Smith?
Well, Stephen A. Smith has strong opinions about everything, and he's immodest to a fault. And he has claimed that he's had all manner of Democrats, fundraisers, elected officials, his own pastor, who were begging him to run for president. And you know what? It says a whole lot less about Stephen A. Smith than it does about the Democratic Party. Yeah. Because are we supposed to believe that there's not a single elected official in the Democratic Party, from Gavin Newsom to Josh Shapiro to Gretchen Whitmer to Andy Beshear and others, who they believe can win the presidency in 2028? Apparently, a lot of Democratic operatives and mega donors believe that, at least if you listen to Stephen A. Smith. He went on The View, and as I say, with his textbook immodesty, he was asked by the left-wing ladies of The View. They set it up by saying, you're actually more popular than Pete Buttigieg, than Gretchen Whitmer, than Kamala Harris, and you're almost as popular as Pete Buttigieg. Would you really consider running for president? He said, I don't really want to run. I don't really want to be a politician. But if I did, I think I could beat all of them. So he is. Now, look, this is a guy who, he's not just, I wouldn't even call him a sports commentator. I'd call him a basketball commentator. He knows nothing about hockey. He knows very little about football or hockey or baseball. I repeat myself with the hockey, but sure. He's a basketball expert. He played college basketball himself, and he's got a strong personality. He has some charm. He has some charisma. That's true. But if the Democrats have this dream that he can become their Donald Trump, and he can be a guy who can come in and basically wipe the slate clean, so that they don't continue to carry the baggage of the disastrous Biden-Harris administration, then you've got to think that's the best reason, that they need a blank canvas on which to paint a pretty picture with a guy like Stephen A. Smith. The problem is he has no depth, has no expertise on policy. He's never been in politics. He's never led an organization. He's never hired people. Yeah. So, I mean, to envision him sitting in the Oval Office with the most important job in the world is, to say the least, a bridge too far.
Well, that's I think you really hit the nail on the head with a couple of those points there, Tim. And specifically, there's one that actually Matt Walsh on the Daily Wire made this point, that he's never demonstrated any leadership. So we could say that he hasn't got a history in politics. Sure, Donald Trump also didn't have a history in elected politics, although he spent the last 30, 40 years talking about politics, trade, economics. Whereas Stephen A. Smith, he doesn't. He's kind of jumped into it a few months ago with an angry man shouting at the clouds routine. But he's never had any leadership of anything. And what has he led? There's nothing. He doesn't own a business, or he hasn't started a business. He doesn't employ people. he's never had to deal with people below him on a ladder, on a hierarchical organizational ladder. And Matt Walsh makes the point that if he were the guy who deals with Wendy's franchises, Stephen A. Smith would not get a job managing a Wendy's because he's 60 years old and he's never led anybody. And yet, because he got the vow of approval from the View, now he's apparently the lead. He's competent to be the leader of the free world. I don't see
Well,
it.
and
I don't buy it.
it's not just the View. He
Sure.
was brought onto ABC Sunday Show this week and interviewed by Jonathan Karl as if he was a legitimate contender for the 2028 Democratic presidential nomination. So, all the major media is covering the Stephen A. Smith story
Sure.
as if there's a real possibility that, he could run. And as he said, he could beat all of them. Now, let's compare him to the most recent case of someone completely outside the realm of politics who entered the fray. That was Marianne Williamson, who's
Exactly who I was going to say. Yeah.
a spiritualist and an author. But if nothing else, Marianne Williamson was a serious person with quite learned. She'd written books. I may not agree with what she says, but she had a point of view that was legitimate for a lot of people. Stephen A. Smith has never even delved into politics beyond the level of a soundbite saying, I hate the Democrats and the Republicans. He said he felt like a fool for voting for Kamala Harris. Well, okay, what does that prove? He also said he
You might be right.
He doesn't like Trump's DEI policy because he thinks it tags every person of color in the workplace as a minority hire rather than being qualified. Okay, but that's about it for depth when it comes to Stephen A. Smith. Now, maybe he's a quick study. Maybe he can assemble some sort of policy platform. But, for a guy that's basically just been a basketball commentator and sports host, co-host, whatever, that's not going to cut it.
Tim, we'll be carrying on looking at how narrow and how shallow the Democrat front bench might be after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.